Right next on the calendar, we have Amanda, who is going to talk about B2B content on LinkedIn, trends, and some research to give you some recommendations. If you remember the talk by Gleb, talk is content is currency for B2B marketing. And so she's going to tell you how to optimize and what kind of currency works and doesn't work. So without further ado, thank you very much, Amanda Green. Please come on stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I know you guys just came back from lunch, so I am going to do my best to keep you awake, okay? Everybody with me? Yeah. Okay, good. There's good energy here. Awesome. Well, as Gil mentioned, thank you for that great introduction. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Amanda Green, and I am a client solutions manager at LinkedIn. I primarily work on the marketing solutions side, so content and strategy for tech clients is what I do all day, every day. So I am yo girl from LinkedIn, okay? Amazing. So in true LinkedIn fashion, one thing that we do at all of our events is we do an icebreaker. So a lot of times we'll share something that's not on our LinkedIn profile. So one thing that's not on my LinkedIn profile is, so I attended a historically black college in Atlanta, Clark Atlanta University. And the pageant culture is huge out there. There's Mr. and Miss everything, Miss Black and Gold, Miss Clark Atlanta. So I told myself from freshman year to junior year, I was like, I'm never gonna do a pageant, it's too much work. And then my senior year, I did one, and I won. So I'm a pageant queen. Yes, thank you. Former Miss Atlanta University Center, so that's just a fun fact about me. Awesome, so just to go through the agenda for the day, so as Gil mentioned, we'll be talking about two key things today. LinkedIn content best practices. So I got the word that everyone in here is primarily, we're all from tech companies or tech adjacent. Yeah. So we'll be talking about best practices specific for people that work in the tech vertical. And then we're also going to go through our Enlightened tech buyer research. LinkedIn did two studies, one back in 2016 and then one in 2018, so that we could give our clients an idea of what tech buyers are thinking, because content is currency, but the other half of that, of course, is making sure that you're targeting the right people. So let's dive in. So as a starter, just to, kind of get an idea of the LinkedIn environment, this is what we pride ourselves on. So the LinkedIn environment, people are coming to LinkedIn every day to view and consume content. Sorry, there's animation on this slide. Let me go back. Okay, so our three key factors, of course, are audience, environment, and then the mindset that our clients are in. So when we think about LinkedIn, we did a study with some of our clients and our members, and we asked them, in your opinion, what is the most trusted social platform? 48% of those people said LinkedIn. So when we think about trust, it's way more likely if members and clients are trusting the platform that they're receiving content on, they're also going to trust your brands as well. So it's something really cool. I mean, no shade to the Facebooks and the Twitters of the world. We love them as well. But trust is really, really important when we think about it from 30,000 feet. So with that trust, we want to think about mindset. So how many of you guys check or use LinkedIn at least once or twice a week? It's okay if you don't. Great. And is it a fair statement to everybody that when you go on LinkedIn, you're in a professional mindset, you're looking to consume content, you may be looking to engage with different brands, or you may be looking for jobs? Is that a fair statement? Yes? Awesome. So what we found is that audiences that are looking to consume and educate themselves are almost 2 times more likely to engage with content. So that is a great setup for brands on LinkedIn to really be able to engage their target audiences while they're way more likely to be receptive to what you guys are promoting. So when we think about it, the result is there's way more activity on the news feed than there ever was. So there's 50% more members engaging. We're growing every day. The engagement rates have almost doubled year over year, which is awesome. And then the views, content, profiles, company pages have increased by almost 60%, which is huge from 2016 to 2018. That's amazing. So what we found in that research that we've done is that 85% of all page views on LinkedIn are for members to consume content. So I'm gonna, admit something here. I actually did not build a LinkedIn profile until I needed a job. And then I got hired at LinkedIn. Boom, look at that. So, a lot of times before I started at this company, I didn't realize what other things LinkedIn could be used for. I literally made a profile in May of 2015 and I got hired in September of that same year. So a lot of people have the misconception that LinkedIn is used for jobs only. But no, most of our people are there to consume content. So with that being said, let's jump into some best-in-class examples and tips. So just to get a survey of the room, how many people in here actually build content for their brands or their company? Okay, cool. How many people, those of you who do not build content, are you guys actually having conversations with the people that do? Do you guys feel like you have influence? Yeah, okay, awesome. So I think this presentation will be relevant for you all. So when we think about the anatomy of creating compelling sponsored content, today we're gonna talk about the 4 different buckets. So we're gonna talk about images, copy, like what you actually write and say in your content, the experience, what is actually happening when a member clicks through to your website? Is it seamless? Is it easy? And then of course, the value of testing. There is no perfect equation for excellent content on any platform. So with advertising, you want to be open to A/B testing, whether it's different images, different copy. So we'll talk a little bit about that in detail today. So first things first, visuals and images are the new headline. So when I go on LinkedIn, Facebook, any social platform, the first thing I zoom in on is the picture. Is that fair? Does everybody else feel that way? I'm more likely to look at the picture than I am to read the headline, especially if I'm doing it on my mobile device and I'm on the go. So you want to make sure that your images are compelling. Typically what I recommend for my clients is having a mix of like human-centric content as well as like really compelling infographics. I know that on LinkedIn, people like to see themselves in their content. So if you use pictures of professionals, if you use different data stats that are going to be relevant to your audience. You want to think about having a solid mix. Stay away from the stock images. We don't tend to see them do very well on our platform. The other thing is consistency is key. There's 3 examples here from Microsoft, Google, and EY. So think about something in your brand that sets you apart. So like in Microsoft's example, for this particular campaign, they use very similar imaging so that when the member is scrolling through their profile, if they see that different color scheme or if they see that different brand logo, they know that that content is coming from Microsoft. Google Analytics had a very similar sort of visual aid that they were using, and EY makes sure that they include their brand or their logo on all of their content. So think about consistency is key. The other thing is you want to make sure that you're being insightful. So a lot of times when we're thinking about like a full funnel content strategy, you want to make sure that you're providing value before you're making an ask to your particular audience. So like in this case, in these 3 examples, we noticed that all 3 of them have data points. So you don't have to click, all you have to do is look at it, which is going to, of course, inspire members to click through to the website and find out more information about whatever it is that you're offering. You also want to make sure you're not giving away too much good information. That's where the landing page comes in, especially if you are looking at content that's gated, if you want somebody to fill out a form or to speak to someone before you give it. So don't give away too much good stuff. The next thing is be creative. I know that I work all day, I'm talking to marketers, I'm working in tech, but I'm human too, just like all of us are. So don't be afraid to have a little fun. You be creative, use humor. I know that there was the LinkedIn Solutions, Marketing Solutions, we have a blog. I encourage you guys to subscribe. And I know last year they were publishing a lot of data on like human emotion and how it plays into content. So what is the kind of stuff that makes you tick? What makes you pay attention? So think about that when you're creating the content. It doesn't always have to be super straight-laced and stiff. So the takeaway with building content is you want to make sure that you're concise, your content is compelling, and that it's clear. I actually used to work at Google. I used to work on the AdWords product, and I would work with small and medium businesses, and I would help them all day build ads. And I know one conversation I would have frequently was like, you gotta make sure that your ads are not misleading. So for example, if you want a member to download a white paper, say that in your content. If you want them to schedule a call with the salesperson, say that in your content. Make sure that takeaway is clear. In an effort to do that and make sure that your content is easy to consume, we recommend that that introductory text, the text that comes above the image, is 150 characters or less. It's not a hard and fast rule, it's just a best practice. We also did a study to see like headline copy, verbiage, and what is the most effective. So in these 2 different charts, No worries if you can't see, because I do think we'll be sending this deck out if any of you guys want to use this information. But we did a study to see like different words or phrases and how effective they are on LinkedIn. So like you'll notice on the left-hand side is the new, the year of, the future of, why you should, and how many average shares we saw on the platform with those different headline copies. Words like leader, success, top 10, future, those tend to resonate really well. So again, not a hard and fast rule, but this is just a little guideline with some data to back it up. So when we think about how to build compelling copy, so you want to make sure that these are examples of actually some text ads that we've run on LinkedIn. Anybody in here using text ads and sponsored content, or have they used text ads? Yep, okay, great. So these are examples, and we use text ads in this example because in this case, we don't have an image to zoom into. So when we think about writing compelling content, that first sentence, provide a data point, use the question and answer method, right? So if you're providing a solution, ask a question about what the problem is, and take away the fluff. Sometimes the challenges aren't always pretty, as we know. Adding value, so clearly articulate why they should engage with your brand. So you have to remember that a lot of people that are consuming this content are still in that sort of needs assessment phase. They're still deciding, they're still kind of making that short list of brands that they may want to engage with in the future. So when you think about adding value, they want to know the why and not just the what. Credibility, I always think, third-party sources, whether that is, customer testimonials. I know a lot of my clients have been on like a lot of different Gartner lists. If you've won any awards, highlight that, shout yourself out, okay? And then last but not least, just going back to being concise and keeping that introductory text below 150 characters. Okay, we good? You guys still with me? Yeah. Okay, great. I know after lunch, it's like it kind of sets in, so awesome. The next phase of this, of course, is tailoring content to your audience. So, for example, my title is really long. It's Client Solutions Manager. My formal title was Account Manager. So when I would scroll through LinkedIn and when I would see content that addressed people in my role particularly, I would be 10 times more likely to actually engage with that content. So if you are targeting a specific group, whether it's like IT decision makers, software engineers, for example, call them out in your content. Make them feel like that content is tailored for them specifically. And then again, don't be afraid to appeal to the pain points. If your brand or your product or service is going to solve a problem, it's okay to address it when you build out your content. You also want to set clear expectations. So when you think about, and I would say like this is really important, especially if you're thinking about lead generation content. If you're making an ask, let it be known. Do you want them to view something? Do you want them to download something? Register, learn more. Using those direct call to actions, either in the headline or actually putting them in the infographics themselves, is just a great way to be transparent and kind of going back to that trust piece. So they know exactly what they're gonna get when they get to your landing page. I've been misled by a lot of ads before. It's like, click here, you get a free so-and-so. And then when I get to the landing page, it's like very gray. I'm being asked for credit card information, stuff like that. So it's really important to be clear and set the right expectation with your audience. Also, you want to make sure that you're managing expectations. So if you're promoting a asset download, if it's a free trial, just make sure that there are no surprises once they get to the landing page. So for example, in this case, this ad by the SaaS brand SAS, they are promoting a webinar, but there's not a whole lot of information about it in the content itself. But when they get to the website, they have all of the details, the time, the recording, what the subject matter is gonna be. So just making sure that experience is consistent. Hashtags, the return of the hashtags. I can't tell you guys, like last year specifically, how many times I got questions about, do hashtags work on LinkedIn? Can I track hashtags? So the answer is yes, hashtags do work on LinkedIn. And they're a really great way to establish brand presence beyond that initial target audience. We did a case study and we found that the click-through rates went up almost 3% with ads that were using hashtags in comparison to ads that were not using hashtags. And then we also saw almost a 2% increase in viral action. And what viral means is that if you reach someone in your target audience and let's say they share the content or they like it or they comment and someone else in their network also engages with the brand, that's what we consider viral. So use those hashtags.
Quick question about that. How many hashtags?
There's not really a hard and fast rule. From my experience, I wouldn't recommend using more than 2 in the introductory text, and also keeping in mind that 150 character limit. And then, of course, investing in native experiences. So how many people in here have used LinkedIn lead gen forms? Yeah, good job, team. Okay, great. So LinkedIn lead gen forms, for those of you guys who don't know, is our native experience where you can implement a form with your content, and a member can actually fill out all their information in the LinkedIn newsfeed without having to click through to a landing page. You're able to collect their information and follow up with them. The cool thing about lead gen forms too is it's mainly autofill. So when a member clicks sign up, download, whatever the call to action is, they don't really have to do much else, which is great. We also recommend, if you are leveraging lead gen forms, we tend to see that around 5 form fields is like the key. So you want to make sure that when you're building out your lead gen forms, you're only asking for the information that's 100% necessary for you to qualify and follow up with that lead. Awesome. Also making sure that your ads are mobile friendly. Does anybody in here want to take a guess how much, so when we think about sponsored content, and trust me, don't worry if you guys don't know off the top of your head. Does anybody want to guess what percentage of our engagement comes from mobile? For 90, 70? All of it? 60? Okay, 60, you're the closest. So it's actually around 65% of our traffic comes from mobile, and I think that number is growing. So you wanna make sure that your images and your copy are mobile friendly. The really cool thing about the Campaign Manager tool is that when you look at the ad preview, you can actually toggle between mobile and desktop, so you can actually see what your ad's gonna look like on someone's mobile device, including lead gen forms. So we also want to look at the brands that are doing really well. I got a little birdie in my ear told me that some of these brands or representatives from these companies might be here today, so it's okay to raise your hand when you get a shout out. So Nutanix, which I know actually a couple of my friends at LinkedIn help manage that account. In this particular example, they're doing a really good job of like adding value or providing a meaningful statistic before their members click through. Really great job there. Nexmo, great example of using a direct call to action in the image itself, making that really clear. Tipalti, also using a great direct call to action. And then Get Prime, in this particular case, they're also leveraging lead gen forms, which is amazing. And they're also calling out their audience in particular, as you guys can see, calling out software engineers. Anybody in here from those companies? Raise your hands. Okay, shout out to you guys. Excellent job. Awesome. So the Enlightened Tech Buyer Research Study. This is the study that I mentioned we did back in 2016, and then we did it again in 2018. So for this study, we surveyed about 5,000 technology marketers globally. And we did them in kind of 4 different categories. So hardware and software for end users, and then hardware and software for data centers. This is one of the largest studies that we've done at LinkedIn. It's been huge. And the purpose of this study was to give our clients insight in how to reach those decision makers. One of the common mistakes that a lot of my clients have made, and including myself, I used to think, oh, we have to target decision makers if you're asking someone to make a purchase. But we really wanted to get insight into who really influences these decisions. Is it just the VPs? Is it just the directors? Is it just the C-suite? So that was sort of the point of this study. Has anyone in here seen this research or seen any of this presentation? Okay, good, that's exciting. So we want to talk about how is technology buying evolving, and it is changing very, very rapidly. So today we're going to answer 3 questions. How has it evolved? How are those decisions made? And what should marketers do? What is the takeaway? So to start off with some data, we found that almost 7% of the group that we studied, the individuals make up the buying committee. So we're talking senior individual contributors, not just the director or the VP plus that we may think in terms of who influences the buying committee. We also found that 9 in 10 of enterprise buyers, they look outside of that buying committee for that peer opinion. So for example, I have a client that sells HR software, and we were having a conversation with them. You can target the directors and the VPs, but who's really going to them with that information are the recruiters, are those senior level individual contributors. 70% of those decision makers are engaged in the buying process from the very, very beginning. So they're not just hearing about it when it comes to their desk after all the research has been done. They're hearing about it from the very beginning. So you want to make sure that you're keeping that in mind when you think about who do we need to target? How can we most effectively reach the right people? So out of that study, 88% of that audience said that this product or service quality was the most important factor when selecting or making a business decision. So we talked about a little earlier, thinking about what the experience is. So you want to think about that from start to finish, whether you're looking at ungated content and watching a video on your website or reading a white paper. What is that experience like? What is your sales cycle like? And sometimes I know a lot of teams at the companies that I support, they're very siloed, but you want to have those conversations. Talk to your sales team. What does the process look like when you get on the phone with a potential, lead or a qualified lead or something that can turn to an opportunity? What does that process look like? And I would encourage you guys, don't be afraid to kind of blow the whistle if you see that part of that process is not ideal, and put yourself in the shoes of that buyer, because we all have to make decisions and, purchases on the other side as well. So meet today's enlightened tech buyers. So we kind of group these, when we did the study, we grouped them into sort of 4 different buckets. So we have, of course, the decision makers. We have influencers, people that influence that decisions, the teams that implement the different products or services, and then, of course, the end users. And we want to make sure that whatever we're selling is going to be a good experience for people in all 4 of those groups, not just the decision makers. So when we think about the enlightened tech buyer, they mean business. Here's why. So we did some research. How many of you guys have talked to your LinkedIn reps and they ask you, how long is your sales cycle? Has anybody been asked that question? So we actually found with this research that companies are making decisions about 22% quicker than when we did the study back in 2016. So we have a little bit of a shorter time window to engage those people and, to make sure that we're influencing those decisions. Also, the competition is really high. We sort of bucketed this into the 4 different quadrants for hardware and software end users, for data centers, and we see that the competition has increased significantly, and this is only in a 2-year period. So just think of what it's going to look like in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years. So we want to make sure that that vendor selection process is being considered when you're thinking about what content you should promote on LinkedIn and who you're actually engaging from the beginning of the process, in the middle, and at that time when they're actually making that decision to buy. And then ultimately, buyers seek information online, and it helps kind of shape that purchase intent. So that's why, again, back to LinkedIn being the most trusted platform, it's the most visited site for actual decision makers. So you really have a unique opportunity here to engage, the people that are ultimately going to say yay or nay to deciding on your brand. So amazing amount of opportunity here. And you also want to think about it from a brand perspective. Like LinkedIn, one of the biggest things that we focus on is members first. We have a members first mindset. So when you think about your brand, what is it that sets you apart? That's what you want to consider here.
How would you guys rank this list? I'm surprised not to see like Aptera, G2 Crowd probably the first there, like Pure Insights for tech buyers.
I'm actually not sure, Gil. I'm going to have to follow up with you on that. I think my guess is that they had a subset of companies when they did the research study. I remember seeing something about that, but I'll let you know for sure. Good question. So what's the key takeaway? What should marketers do? This slide is a bit of an eyesore, but the takeaway is you want to target the entire buying committee. These different buckets or these different columns show the percentage of people in all these different teams and all these different functions in each company that influence the buying decision. So you may not think, let's say someone's purchasing software. You may not think that 17% of the sales team actually influences that. You might think it's only engineering. So they kind of bucketed them for the 4 different groups. But the key takeaway is you want to make sure that you're targeting the entire buying committee. For those of you who are familiar with how to set up targeting on LinkedIn, typically when we think buying committee, we think senior individual contributor and above. So senior, manager, director, VP, and CXO. Anybody in here have found any challenges with targeting, like senior level or non-IT DMs, IT decision makers? Any challenges? Anybody wants to share? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you over-segment.
Yes.
So you have to be pretty open and flexible.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So just in case everybody didn't hear her, she was saying that sometimes it's challenging to get big enough audience sizes when you segment and silo. What I would encourage you guys to do, you don't necessarily have to group the seniorities separately. What I recommend doing usually is putting like senior and manager in one group. And manager from LinkedIn standard just mean that they have direct reports. So those managers may not be decision makers, but senior and manager is in the same group, and then director and above in a separate group. If you are seeing problems with scale, I would also recommend testing out campaigns where you're targeting just senior and above. There's nothing wrong with that. I would say the one benefit of being able to silo your audience is if you are going to create content that is tailored. If it's just for decision makers, maybe leave the senior and managers out. If this is top of funnel content that, we're focusing on brand and establishing a presence, it's okay to group all of them together. And then the other key takeaway is that you want to make sure that you're creating an ongoing conversation from the needs assessment all the way to the renewal phase. What we kind of did, we did a research is on how much engagement we saw on LinkedIn with members as they're at like different stages in that buying process. So you want to make sure that you're a part of the conversation from the beginning, the middle, and to the end. It goes back to, making sure that they're having a really seamless experience with your brand. And I also want to point out the fact that we're talking about paid content, but this also, bless you, has something to do with your organic presence as well. So, if you're not the person that manages your company page or your organic content, I would encourage you to build a relationship with that team and really get to know, what it is that they're doing, because ultimately what's happening on the organic side is going to impact the paid side and vice versa.